Hi, I'm Bonnie Flint with Wild Animal Initiative, and in collaboration with Ben Bernasco at Whitman College, we created a remote-controlled bird trap for research, conservation purposes, things like that. And I'm just going to give you a quick tour of how to make it and how to use it. So we created the main body of it from hardware cloth. You can easily find that in any hardware store. And we rolled it out, cut the cloth to the correct size, and then rolled it together to make a tube. And we put the tube together with zip ties. Then we also created a circle out of the hardware cloth and put that on with zip ties. So you can see zip ties here, zip ties down at the bottom. And with the hardware cloth, you want to make sure that you snip off any of the ends as close to the wire that's parallel to it as possible to make it a little less pokey, and make sure you bend the wire up so that it's not sticking outward, it's kind of curved in to itself. For the lid, we found this twin wall sort of corrugated plastic board. It's just like corrugated cardboard, except made out of plastic, polypropylene. We did this to make it a little bit more weatherproof. You could use cardboard on the top, but again, if that gets even a tiny bit wet, it's going to be a problem. So the lid needs a slot, and that is for the hanger. We're using these tube feeders. There goes the bird seed. The hanger needs to be able to come up through this slot, and you need a way to put the bird feeder in and out. So if you cut just one wall of the tubing along the corrugation, of the plastic along the corrugation, you'll be able to sort of make this little flap, and then that allows for you to lower the feeder down into the tube and push this up. And this is actually how the entire feeder will hang. We just put this onto a shepherd's hook. And to attach this, we just made small slots around the edges of the plastic, and once again, zip tied it on. For this part, you want to be able to open and close it, so you can use a zip tie. You'd have to cut it off every time. So a twist tie or just any sort of contraption that will hold it closed against this wire mesh will do. You have to cut out doors, of course, so that the birds can get inside. We chose to do 2 doors. This one is wired closed at the moment because we have just used this to trap. But you want to make the doors large enough for the size of bird that you're hoping to be able to go in and out comfortably. We used many different sizes of doors on the various traps that we made. And they seem to go in and out pretty well through something this size. For the door that is going to be the trap door, it needs to be fairly low on the trap because the sliding door that is going to come down with the remote control needs to be able to get over the door. And you don't want it necessarily sticking out over the top of the trap. So make sure that door hole that you cut out is low enough. So all of that is relatively basic. The hard part comes with creating the actual sliding door. So there are probably a lot of different ways to do this. The way that we figured out is getting some tube and getting a metal dowel that this tube can fit around. So this tubing is actually from some garden stakes that we just cut down to size. They're fiberglass, so it's very easy to get through them with a hacksaw. The metal dowels, we couldn't easily find a size that we really liked, and we actually ended up buying a wreath holder from a hobby store. It was easy enough for us to cut through with some nippers, and I'll be showing you some tools in just a moment. And then you have to be able to bend it. So it was a little bit difficult for us to find the right properties of the dowels, but I'm sure that there's lots of types of metals and metal dowels and things out there that would work. You just have to make sure that all of your pieces work together. So the tubing has to be able to fit through the metal dowel, or vice versa. And the way that we connected the metal dowel was just with these L-shaped braces. These are quite easy to find in a hardware store or online. And we just put them on with a washer and a wing nut, so they can come off and on very easily if we need to move them to a new spot. You do need to make sure they're really well aligned with each other vertically, and that they're the right distance from each other for the door. For the door itself, you can use what you cut out from here, or you can cut a slightly larger piece if you want to. The thing that we found to be the trickiest, and maybe one of the most important features, is that this door has to be fairly lightly connected to the tubing. It can't be super tight, or it basically creates pressure against the dowels, and the tubes are sort of pressed against the dowels and can't slide down it. So that was the trickiest part. One thing that we also thought of doing was getting, there are bird cages for pet birds that have a kind of mechanism that drops down, but it was too expensive to buy an entire bird cage, and we couldn't find just that part by itself. So we did this. There's probably a lot of different ways to do it. Before I move on, one of the things that I forgot to point out was for the doorways, for these openings, it's good to cover those edges so that you don't cut yourself when you put your hand through, and the birds or other animals that might get on here can't cut themselves. So one thing you can do is use electrical tape. So that's what's used along here. But as you can see, when it gets hot, the electrical tape basically just comes off. So another thing that I found to be really useful are these slide bars that are used for report cover. When you were a kid and turned in essays in those, just cut those to the right size, slide it with the mesh in between it, and then I just use zip ties to secure it down. Optionally, you can put a perch. Basically anything can work as a perch. We had some old feeders that we removed perches from and used in some places. This is for a pegboard. If you just have some metal that is bent like this, you can find a way to secure it. So I think perches are good. It helps the bird feel comfortable before going inside. And this is completely optional. This holds a bowl. You can get this at a pet food store. And we put this here just to sort of encourage the birds to get to this point, and then they would be more likely to go inside to get on the feeder. So now let's get to the mechanism for making this door drop. So what we decided to use was a car door actuator. You can get these ready-made kits. and they'll include a receiver. It'll look a little bit similar to this, but slightly different. The wiring that you'll need, and a car door remote. So something like this, where it's got the open and the close. Some of the parts that it comes with is there's a long, they just call it a connecting rod, and it slides up through this hole. And we, in order to find a way to hold the door up, found that a fork-shaped wire connector, so you can find it in like an electronics section, is kind of the perfect thing for our situation because it can fit around the metal dowel and hold up the tubing. So we just attached this again with zip ties, our best friends, and when you want to set the door up, you just pull the actuator out and put the fork underneath the tube. We wanted to be able to remove the receiver in the battery. Here's our 12-volt battery. So we actually put on these connectors, but the actuator comes with connectors that would fit directly onto the receiver that comes with the actuator. We chose to get a second receiver that's just much simpler and doesn't have as many different options. There's a lot more plugs in the other receivers because it's for a car door, and we just wanted something a little bit easier. So we bought this separately, and bought these separately as well. So you just connect these two things. These stay connected on here, and then we used alligator clips and we connect it to the battery. When we have this sitting on the actual shepherd's hook, we use Velcro straps and sort of make this wire and the receiver flat against the vertical bar of the shepherd's hook. And we put the battery on the ground just because it's a little bit heavy, and we usually put it in a somewhat protective box. So we put it in this box. We actually don't close it all the way. It's very important not to fully enclose a 12-volt battery in an airtight container because it releases gases and it will cause the container to explode as the gases build up. So you can put it in a container, just make sure there's a very small hole in there to allow the gas to come out. The battery's actually not charged right now, so I'm not going to show you how it releases, but nonetheless, that is kind of the long and short of how to build this and use it. Of course, when you hang it up, very important to remember to tie this off when you're actually trapping, because the birds can and will fly out the top if it is even a little bit open. We did some habituating to get the birds used to it. Not every species will require a habituation period, but ours most definitely did. And when we did that, we wired this open because we did not want to accidentally trap any birds or other animals inside. So we kept this wired open, and this was open. The second door was open during the habituation period. So the last thing that I wanted to show you are a couple of very important tools that you will need in order to deal with cutting all of this wire. There's a lot of wire cutting. So these are snips, and these are nippers. The nippers will allow you to get really close to that parallel wire for the wire that you're cutting. And these snips just kind of you should sort of go fast and dirty when you're clipping with these. You will need these. If you can borrow them, that's always a good thing instead of having to buy them. A lot of sort of DIY maker spaces might have these available. I hope that was helpful, and thank you very much for watching.